Welcome to the Voice of Counseling, presented by the American Counseling Association. This program is hosted by Dr. S. Kent Butler. This week's episode is Intentional Interviewing and Counseling and features Dr. Alan Ivey and Dr. Mary Bradford Ivey.
Welcome to the Voice of Counseling from the American Counseling Association. My name is Dr. S. Kent Butler, and joining me today is Dr. Alan E. Ivey, a friend, a mentor, and a phenomenal all-around guy who has brought me into his sphere and allowed me to grow and to become who I am through some of the things that he has been doing in his career. Alan is a distinguished university professor emeritus at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. He is the founder of Micro Training Associates and an educational publishing firm, the first to present multicultural videos for training counselors. Dr. Ivey is a fellow and a lifetime member of American Counseling Association. He was elected president of the Society of Counseling Psychology for APA and is both a fellow and a diplomate of counseling psychology. He has received many awards, but is most proud of being named a multicultural elder at the Second National Multicultural Conference and Summit.
Amen.
Alan is the author and co-author of more than 40 books and 200 articles and chapters. All of these translated into about 22 languages. How about that?
Yeah.
His latest book, with co-authors Carlos Zalaquet and Mary Bradford Ivey, is Intentional Interviewing and Counseling, the 10th edition. And here it is. And without any further ado, let me bring in my man, Dr. Alan E. Ivey. How are you?
How are you, Dr. Kent Butler?
I am
Good to
fine.
see
I am
you.
fine. I am so excited to have the opportunity to hang out with you today.
I'm excited to hang out with you because the last time we really hang out, you were still a doctoral student. And here you are after all those years, president of APA. Oh my God, what a time to know him. I'm so proud to be here with you.
Wow. Well, I hopefully we talked since I was a doctoral student, but I remember coming and being a part of the micro training and doing some work with you for, I think, one of the iterations of the videos that you do for
Yes.
for your business. So you really made me feel like I was a good counselor.
Oh my God, people, I can't even say it. He's so good. Kent, you are awesome. We were so lucky to have you. What else can I say? It was wonderful to work with you and to see your counseling skills.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, I had great mentors. And one of my mentors was one of your former students, Dr. Tony Crespi.
Oh, yes. Tony, one of my wonderful students up in Connecticut.
Up in Connecticut, yeah. I was at the University of Connecticut, and he was an adjunct in our program. And I got an opportunity to really learn from him. He's the one who got me really on top of my game with writing. He really saw talent there and pushed me, and like you push people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, two of us used to go skiing together now and then.
Okay, yeah, he's a skier extraordinaire and a pilot as well.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about the book a little bit? Intentional Interviewing and Counseling. It's in its 10th edition. That's really great. How did it all come about?
How did it all come about? Well, first of all, I want to mention Dr. Carlos Zalaquet. He's our co-author, and of course, the one with whom I am bound at the hip, as you've said, my partner, my wife, my special person, Mary Bradford Ivey. So it was the three of us. And how did this one come about? Well, this book has been around, Kent, for 40 years. And that edition will carry us to 45. And then after that, I think I'm going to pass the book. We are going to pass the book on to Carlos. And he, by the way, He is terrific. I tell you, he's former president of the South American Psychological Association. And here, here is our book, and I can't say enough good things about it. Why? Because Carlos and Mary really put it together very nicely. I'm very proud of both of them. And by the
Excellent,
way,
excellent.
we're very proud of moving it. Each year, we've moved it more and more to multicultural emphasis. And this time we brought in some very specific stuff on trauma. And because actually, I think we're seeing, Kent, the semi-medicalization of counseling. In other words, now counselors have to be prepared for a whole new style of client. Pandemic has produced so many suicides, so many people are traumatized. Little kids don't have socialization skills. So we hope our book helps with some of those really key issues. It was really important that we updated and changed it. It was interesting to me. I thought the 9th edition was perfect. I looked at the world. The 9th edition became instantly obsolete. You got to keep moving. Everybody's got to keep moving.
Right. So when you say obsolete, how come that was the case? What was it about it? Is this the changing times, the pandemic? What brought about it making it kind of lose its gusto so soon?
Well, if you look at there, everything is in the 9th edition that's in the 10th, but we'd be able to go more into depth, bring in a lot more research, and full chapters on research, show how to deal with issues. Multicultural material is quite a bit enhanced. I would mention, by the way, Kent, I wrote the first counseling text that used the word culture. And as I looked at the book, it was 1980, and lo and behold, I found about 20 references to culture in that book. So I've been doing this. I've been doing multiculturalism. It's basically the skills are what I do, but my heart is with the issue of multicultural issues and social justice.
So Alan, as a white male, how did you get there? What was it about you that really saw that there was a need to really kind of expand it beyond just the work that we do in the white community?
Well, it's a long story. It goes back to Sunday school, believe it or not.
Okay.
We used to, in our Baptist church, we used to march in singing Jesus Loves Little Children, red and yellow, black and white. And for some reason, that's sunk in. It's the only thing from Sunday school that really sunk in. So I really started out right there. And then I read some books as a kid where there was black heroes, and I got that side of it. But equally important is a guy named Tandy Wilbur. He was a Swinomish manager, Swinomish indigenous Indians, and he used to stop by my father's small grocery store, and he paid attention to me. He wore a suit, and he was nice. And then I find out later my parents were very close with the people on the reservation. In fact, one child was named for my mother, of all things. So we've been long-term interested in Indians. I remember, I've got too many stories. This one I love, though, about my father. We're small, so we did what we could. The Indians, the Native Americans, came up down from Canada, and they're staying in these horrible cabins. Dad goes over and sells them grocery stores out of the back of his truck. Well, the farmer came up one day and said, "You're going to have to give me a kickback." I don't think he used that word, or you're not going to be allowed to do this. Dad said no. He gave up, even though that money was important to us. And that particular standing up for right, I almost get tears thinking about my pride in him. So pretty good model. And then beyond that, I started in counseling, and if that stuff's already in your body and your heart, you start looking for this, and gradually, increasingly found it. But I tell you what, as a white person, I'm just amazed how much I don't know, how much I continue to need to know, and I keep working. I read this material all the time. Our specialty within the specific types is Indigenous Native American. Mary and I have been on the board of directors of the Harvard Native American program.
Right.
We're supporting it. Teresa from Roy at Stanford is bringing Indigenous language back to the native students at Stanford. So that stuff is very important to me, and it just filters every year more and more in my thinking and books. And I don't know, there's one thing I would say that almost every day, in a sense, I try to do some piece of learning more and doing better.
And it shows, Alan. It really does in terms of how you interact with individuals and you treat people. I'm intrigued by the fact that you not only took it in to learn yourself, you took the opportunity to help others grow and learn themselves. What would you say are some things that counselors who come from the dominant culture should know and do to kind of be more like you?
Oh my God. Well, the thing is, we come right down to it. I've been doing critical race theory since I was 5.
Okay.
And the thing is, it's really tough. Really tough, because you really got to recognize your privilege. You've got to recognize the horrors that white folks have imposed on people of color in this country, and by the way, the people that are less economically advantaged. So,
Right.
and the thing is, I can easily see why this white power thing and white identity thing has become so big, because to look at what you're doing, it's rather sad. And you don't want to think about it. If your grandpa fought in the Civil War, well, then obviously the Civil War was a move for freedom. And boy, we got that intergenerational stuff that's really tough. So really tough. And do what I
So
can.
how do you make it so that it doesn't, you know, there are a lot of individuals who feel that they are being put off because of history, right? You just talked about you were teaching or learning about CRT, critical race theory, since the age of 5. Well, isn't that just history? How do we get people to recognize that we have to understand our history and we have to understand that in context to we are all human beings
Mm,
and that we should treat people as human beings? Where did it get so terribly wrong that people felt that they were in better position or positionality, or they were better as terms of who they are as individuals than another person?
yeah, well, unfortunately, Ulysses Grant tried, and during Reconstruction, a lot of it goes back to Reconstruction, Ken, as you well know. And I think that I know that U.S. Grant, who's criticized all over the place, he's the guy that killed the Ku Klux Klan. It came back, but he actually did that. He was in favor of a lot of good things. In comes the next guy, and he destroyed it. And by the way, the terror of the Reconstruction is, I don't think Reconstruction is over. I think we're still dealing with it
Okay.
daily, unfortunately. And the thing is, to get people to admit massive error is far from easy. And the thing is that I guess one thing that makes it a little easier for me from one side of my family is that they came from the UK, tin miners, dealt with Anaconda and other unions. I don't know Anaconda in a way that. And anyway, he died of what would be called leukemia now, and that would be
Okay.
toxic stuff from Anaconda, who didn't give a damn about their employees. And so the thing is, to get people to look at it is incredibly tough. And then the issue of reparations is very scary, but at least now APA and other groups are talking seriously about reparations. How to wake up those people. Vote! Vote! That's the
Vote, huh?
And by the way, there are these attempts to get groups ready to talk, and I think they're very wise, and we have them even in Sarasota, which is quite remarkable because that's a historically pretty bad town for this area. And they get people from the right and the left together, and you hope that they'll listen to each other.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, right? Is
The
to get people
hardest
to
part.
listen.
And there is also, Kent, a thing that's really important in my life, and that is perspective taking. And
Okay.
perspective taking means you need to, and that's another word for empathy in a sense, but you got to see the perspective, how the other thinks and feels.
Walking
And
in somebody else's shoes, so to speak.
so the thing is, I think what I would work on really is to give people the facts. And instead of calling it, I think critical race theory was an unfortunate name. We should have saw just the facts. And you get just
Yeah, because things get co-opted really badly, right?
yeah,
And so whenever somebody comes to me and talks about critical race theory, I just say, oh, we're talking about history.
yeah, it's just history, and we need to
It's history, and we're being factual. And it's amazing to me that people have such blinders on that. There's a difference for me as to what is a Hollywood movie and a reenactment versus something that's real live footage. I
uh,
am not mistaken any footage of someone being attacked by dogs or water hoses or all these other things
uh,
to keep them in line, right?
yeah.
To be hit over the head. I'm not taking lightly that John Lewis was hit in the head and has video of him being hit in the head
Oh yeah,
and blood rushing down his face. That's history.
that's history. It's
And
fact.
that's what people are saying we can't talk about.
I know it's really well, it's scary, and the truth hurts,
The truth
and
hurts.
the truth hurts, and
So,
we need.
so from your perspective, how do you get someone who didn't live in that era to understand that when people talk about it, that they're not putting blame on them or they're not trying to make them feel guilty? Because a lot of times the response is, well, that's not me. That's not who I am. But you could still be a participant or a recipient of that bad behavior. Is that right?
They're bystanders. That's true. They really are long-term bystanders, and they don't want to look at the situation. They'll let the trauma go by, and they are bystanders. And how do you get people to act? And
Mhm.
this is where the actually I don't. Okay, I am a follower of Jesus. Okay, and the thing is, I wish people would pay attention to the New Testament because the message is there. That's basically all we have to do: love and respect others. And that's a challenge. And preachers rather talk about less sensitive stuff. We go to church regularly, but there's not enough talk about love and following up and acting on Jesus. I always, then I
And
see in
treating people
people,
how you would want to be treated, right? So,
yeah,
I mean, there's, I think definitely love, right?
yeah,
But also recognizing that if this is not somehow you would want to be treated, how
yeah.
would you in turn treat somebody else that way, right?
Do the best I can, uh, and that's what a book is about. To do,
So, Alan, I would like to talk about intentional interviewing and counseling. And can you talk about how counselors can, in various settings, right, enhance their work with clients? What are your thoughts there? The implementation of intentional interviewing and intentional counseling.
well, everybody has to have skills, and I learned very early on. See, one thing I'm particularly proud of is, by the way, I was the first person to do video of counseling and therapy. First person
Right.
to shoot monitor. It's amazing. I just happened to be lucky in the right place. But the thing is, the importance of learning that things are not rushed necessarily as we see them. And the purpose of the book is, I hadn't thought of it this way, basically, is to provide a perspective that widens the way you think about counseling. And we start really almost right away. where are you coming from as a cultural person? I do talk about cultural intentionality, and Krista, your colleague, was helpful to me in that. Is I have not talked enough about what you could or should do, and this may or may not be partial answer to your question.
Right.
See, cultural identity, I think, is where you start in terms of being culturally intentional.
Okay.
But what happens after that?
Is that where the cultural humility comes in play for you?
Cultural humility comes in place, and gradually you learn humility that, hey, I don't know it all. And that is one thing that we're lucky in counseling, because most people don't know all about counseling. I think most people go into counseling with some sense of humility and desire to help. I think you need to get in touch with your own culture. I think you need to find the pride. Then I think you need to become aware of little nicks in our culture and our background.
Okay.
And then there comes action. Are you going to act on this? You're going to do the small comments by yourself, which is great. Are you going to do some work in the community? Although you just can't sit on your bottom, you really need to do what you can. And the thing is, one problem with this particular model I'm suggesting is, let's go to whites. They didn't know what identity was until they decided to come up with white identity and white power. And they'll look back at their history and not see the things in their culture which needs repair and change. And then when it comes to action, we see massacres, guns, anger, hate, the end of democracy. This is what's coming out of white power. And I contrast that with the way they're following up an opportunity for this country. Mary and I have been in Australia 9 times teaching it and so forth. Now, that's a very white country, and it's got lots of problems itself. But my son John taught me something I think is terribly important. He was over visiting with us, and we came back. He came into San Francisco and said, "Dad, look at all the people from different backgrounds.
Right.
This is great. And the strength in the United States is our diversity. We can be and are a model of a multicultural society, and we're blowing it badly. We are a multicultural society. In fact, I guess not enough people are saying we're a multicultural society. Forget the idea of a white power and they say white Christianity. Like, oh, it gives me a headache. White Christianity. Oh my God, Jesus would flip over that.
Yeah. You make some really salient points when you talk about that. Again, it's like people can't get out of their own way, and just when you talk about it like that, it's like people are so afraid to touch difference and to be a part of a society that can embrace that, right?
Yes.
So then we get into terminology like, I don't colorblind, or I don't see color, and all these other things, because people are afraid to just be able to embrace other people, because they think that they have to be in this, I guess, isolated together, and not necessarily work together as a group, collectivistic in the sense.
Yeah, actually, I guess I just say it again in a slightly different way, is that even in elementary school, we need, and on up, we're proud of our diversity. This is the opportunity for our country to show how the world can be.
Right.
And our presidents, certainly our politicians, don't emphasize it. That basically they tend to take a repair orientation to the diversity. Let's repair things. Let's get along, rather than let's take pride of our diversity. And that's asking a lot, I guess, but I think that's we need leadership. We need action. Where can we take pride?
How do we break away from the fear that doesn't allow us to have that leadership?
You ask tough ones. How do we break away from the fear? Well, I think it is I'm sorry. I still keep going back to Jesus, and the thing is, Mohammed, etc. The Buddhism, etc. But let's move beyond uh, caring and love. Caring and love. By the way, the brain has. I do a lot of neuroscience.
Neuroscience, yeah.
And the thing, the amygdala has a big piece of the amygdala. It helps us deal with our negative stuff and fear. Fear is, in our books, we say fear is the major emotions. All the rest of them come out of that. And then there is love, or the positive dimension. There's a side of the amygdala that's just smaller, unfortunately, but it is where that tends to be primarily located. Right. So, in effect, we need to emphasize love, caring, responsibility, and otherism. What can we do? One of the best things I can do to get mental health is to help somebody or to give something away rather than get more, which is, and by the way, Thomas Jefferson was a real problem, is still a real problem in our society.
Okay.
He taught us individualism. He taught us greed. He taught us hypocrisy. And we have this beautiful thing in Washington, D.C. for what he did. Right. I would say that in terms of moral values, he sucked. And leaders need to stand up for diversity. Now, right. That's asking a lot. I don't see Joe Biden sort of does, but not really, not the strength. You got to
right. Is that tied in any way to cultural intentionality?
Yeah, of course. That's the action part.
Okay.
The cultural intentional action. What can you do? Not just what can you think. Yeah. Take thoughts into action. And,
well, how would you define it? So if somebody didn't know what cultural intentionality was, what would you say that was?
Well, by the way, it's your I've been writing about cultural intentionality, but it kind of stopped there. And then Krista, your colleague, asked me, what does that mean? I said, oh my God, I haven't gotten any farther. So I've had to, and I'm not fully thought through, but cultural intentionality is finding that you are a member of history. Heidegger pointed out, we're thrown into the world. And if you're thrown into Saudi Arabia, you're going to think one way. If you're thrown into the South, you're going to think another way. And intentionality becomes aware of your thrownness, where you're coming from. Okay. And then, by the way, instead of disrespecting somebody from India or Bangladesh, they are thrown into a very different world. What would I be like if I'd been thrown into Israel or thrown across the river into Jordan? I would be a very different person. And
you know, it's really interesting. You made me think just now. There is a video Lee Manoir puts out, The Color of Fear. And in one of the aspects of that video, he has people from different ethnicities stand face to face and look at each other, really to look into each other's eyes. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that comes out of that particular video is the similarities that we all have. I mean, you can sit across from somebody from the Indian community or, Hispanic or Latinx community, and you can see similarities in your facial structure, in your body type, and all these different things.
Yes.
Genetics. Yet people think that we are so different. I mean, you can still see and compare people who look alike. I've seen people who come from different cultural backgrounds who look like somebody who's from another cultural background, but yet we can't connect the fact that we're all one.
We are all one. We're all one. We're all God's children, and but we sure act like kids.
Well, that's a perfect place for us to take a break. We're going to take a quick pause and come back to talk with Dr. Alan E. Ivey in a moment. What I would love to talk about after the break, Alan, is microskills. Oh. And then just what your hopes are for the future of counseling in the world. And so This is the Voice of Counseling. I am Dr. S. Kent Butler. Thank you for joining us. We are the American Counseling Association, and we'll be back in a few moments.
Counselors help positively impact lives by providing support, wellness, treatment. We're working to change lives. We are creating a world where every person has access to the quality, professional counseling, and mental health services needed to thrive.
Welcome back to the Voice of Counseling. I'm Dr. S. Kent Butler, and joining me this particular part of our segment is Dr. Mary Bradford Ivey, along with her husband, Alan Ivey. Welcome, and how are you?
Just fine. So nice to see you, Kent.
It's good to see you as well. Thank you for joining us on this portion. So we wanted to get into a little bit about what microskills is and how that really impacts intentional counseling. So can you kind of just talk about the concept a little bit and how in your book you talk about microskills, and can you share with us what is the microskills hierarchy, so to speak, and how might we as counselors effectively integrate them into our practice?
Well, I think have to go back really to the real origins of microskills and that word attending behavior, which we argue strongly is the foundation of listening. You see listening everywhere, but what is listening? And so we got this grant from the Kettering Foundation, and we were videotaping for 6 months and getting nowhere because we didn't know what to pick out. And then we had our wonderful secretary, and she was wonderful, go in and do an interview. And what did she do? She looked down, she mumbled, and she looked away. She changed topics. And lo and behold, we came back and said, huzzah, we have a skill. We sent her back to do another interview with a little instruction in terms of look at the client. And later on, we learned that as the culture, we got the culturally appropriate booking, but look at the client, your vocal tone, speak up, as I often, maybe not. But that actually, the vocal tone more than anything else conveys emotion. And
yes,
the way you talk becomes really critical. And then there is, what is it, 3 V's? Then there's body language. That's what one of the contributions of microcounseling is start looking at what's going on in the body synchrony, but the body. And we started really identifying very specific things in terms of behaviors.
Verbal, vocal, and visual too, the 3 V's.
Right. And so how do you make it so that it doesn't interfere with how you actually communicate?
I think it's just with practice. You do this, you just do this and you practice, it becomes part of you, that you think that this just becomes part of your style.
Yeah, I truly believe in the becoming of a counselor, right? Part of our training is for us to actually get to a point where we have become, right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean that we don't keep evolving, but there's a part of our nature that becomes a counselor when we actually embrace the things that you're talking about, right?
Right.
It's like riding a bike or driving a car. Once you know how to do it, get out of your way.
Yeah. And your own natural style comes through.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Kent, I have to say that I came from the University of Wisconsin, and when I first heard Alan speak, it was a very good program with Carl Rogers, and I learned listening backwards and forwards. And I got to the University of Massachusetts, I heard Alan speak, and I thought he has operationalized what Carl Rogers was there. Carl Rogers wasn't one of my professors, but he came in to speak, and I think we had a lot of Carl Rogers disciples there. So he really put it all together, integrated it, and really told me what counseling was, made counseling work for me. So
wow,
I sort of married Mr. Micro. I married Mr. Micro Training after he'd started this.
You married Mr. Michael Training, right?
Yes, I did.
That's phenomenal. But that kind of leads into this next question I have for you all. Like, what suggestions do you have for counselors and student counselors in training, right? Who and how they're doing it, they can define or enhance their natural style of helping. So what do students need to do to be able to become, I guess I could just stop there, in order to become?
Oh, well, I think they have to just practice these skills, the hierarchy, starting at the beginning with attending behavior, moving up, practice these so they become part of them. And then they can use various theories to work with these, but keep the skills that you're, just learn them so they're part of you. And then you sort of let your own natural personality and style take over too. And that's so important.
So how does a supervisor help cultivate that?
Yeah, but one thing to help cultivate that is really videotape. Look at yourself. Actually, as I got into this, I started doing almost all my counseling on video. And sometimes I review it with the client and we talk about it. That's where Norman Kagan came in a process call. And look at yourself, get feedback, and you will grow if you look at yourself. And the only way to really look at yourself, I think, is that video.
And you can
So what do you say to the person who doesn't like to look at themselves on camera, though?
Well, better find another trade.
Find another trade. So you are gatekeeping them out of the profession.
Hey, I guess I'd point out to that student, hey, they're looking at you. You better look at yourself how they're looking at you.
Amen. I agree 100% with that. You have to know that you also show up in that room. There's always this conversation about people saying that you have to have a blank slate and you have to come in and just not interfere. But you can't. You are a part of that relationship.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm going to go back to our secretary. After we did the training in the skills that we're talking about, she came home came to work the following Monday and said, I did what I was told. I did what you taught me with my husband, and we had a beautiful weekend.
Wow. So what you're saying right there is that once you become a good counselor, you actually know how to interact with people outside of the counseling sphere.
Yeah.
And then you can learn a new perspective. Listen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You want your
Alan,
authentic person to come through in this interview when working with clients. You want yourself to come through too, your natural self, and that helps.
Excellent.
That's
So
what you have, Kent, your natural self right there.
My natural self?
Yeah, you don't see much different than you did as a student.
You're great.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, there you go. So you have become the guru, Alan, and Mary, you as well, of neuroscience and neurobiology. What's the future of counseling when it comes to it?
Well, do you want to take that one first or me?
You go ahead.
You hear me endlessly on it.
I
was wondering how you'd summarize it.
Kent, let me tell you, this is my mentor, I tell you, and as soon as he starts learning something, I know that I have to learn it because pretty soon I've got to get up and stand and talk about it. Yeah, he introduced me. He said, you've got to start learning about this. And he learns it and then he teaches it. And he was the first one to present at APA and ACA about this. He's a great integrationist. He's a great person who takes ideas and just rolls with them. He's got an idea every 5 minutes. I can barely keep up. I have a continuing ed course going all the time.
Oh.
And the thing is, Kent, one of the things really critical, the research shows, particularly, let's start with just attending behavior, that basic listening skills. The brain activates differently. And now there's good solid information from Japan that attending behavior activates part of the brain. Now in our latest book, I can get that held up.
Yeah.
We talk about each skill and the part of the brain that is impacted by that skill. The questions seem to touch one part, reflection of feeling, hits that all-important amygdala and the emotional basis. And you're not just, it's the issue really is counseling changes the brain. Counseling changes the brain. That's a big.
That's because you're changing your behaviors, and your behaviors start to become more cognitive.
Yeah. And the neurons, new neural connections. See, there's always new neural connections developing as a person learns something. And so we're actually, a good counselor has a brain that's wired differently for this particular purpose. And that's and the more farther you get, the more precise you get. So we're going to be just, I think, thoroughly into this. There's also new stuff that's just starting where they have blood tests for depression. And so we better be prepared to deal with the brain and the body, because when they start doing blood tests, we're going to have to find some stuff that we show we at least understand what they're talking about.
So all counselors need to learn about this. They really do. This is the way, this is the future. And they have to understand and integrate, you have to keep learning all your life. You have to.
So Mary, is there any time that Alan comes up with something you're like, no, we can't go that route. We can't do that.
Daily. When he brought up the idea of neuroscience, this is on our beach walk every Saturday. We walk the beach in Sarasota, and he said, I think these Saturdays we're going to start attending lectures on neuroscience. Now you can tell me how well I reacted to that, but I bought into it, and I was right after.
That became my new Saturday activity.
Sorry. So anyway, it's
that's pretty cool.
It's a lot of ideas.
That's pretty cool. So there are some phenomenal couples in counseling. There's Jerry and Marianne Corey.
Yeah.
There's Alan and Mary Bradford Ivey. What's it like to be a celebrity couple in this counseling world?
I don't know for a celebrity.
Well, I basically like it. I think Mary's kind of weary of checking my errors.
No, we have fun doing it. We've had a great life. We've traveled all over the world, and I hope we can model what couples can do together. I mean, if they're in the same field, it's been an exciting ride for both of us.
It's like the learning you get an enjoyable learning. We got along quite well with Aboriginals when we taught at Flinders University. And one of the things they wanted to do was to make videotapes, and we started making videotapes. Well, we've been doing it, and we finally got to the point we had no production at all. And so we said, well, next week we're going to do something, and we're going to do this, this, and this. And then guess what happened the following week? Not one person showed up.
Because we didn't practice
that was one of the more important lessons in my life.
We weren't paying attention to the culture, and the culture is they work in.
So you learn.
Decision making.
What you learn.
What you learn, yeah.
You grow from the experience.
Yeah, we do. We learn. We make mistakes, and then we learn.
So
when did you both know? When did you both know that you were soulmates?
Oh, I don't know. I feel.
Well, you can tell the story if you wish.
We're soulmates. We were both successfully married, and we came across. I don't know. It was an intern that put us together. Let's put it that. An intern that worked for me and for Alan. And I had so admired his work years ago as like a groupie because I thought he had done everything that Carl Rogers had put it all together. But so I'd always admired his work and I knew who he was. But an intern that worked for me and for Alan kind of was like a matchmaker, a Jewish matchmaker. And she sort of, she mentioned Alan to me. I was divorced. He was divorced. And somehow we met at McDonald's getting hamburgers for our kids, both divorced from our dean husbands and wives. And so we just clicked. Guess what our first date was? Going to a lecture. Guess what?
You did like a TED Talk. A TED Talk relationship marriage ready to
started out.
Within 3 weeks, she gave a lecture in my class.
Within 3 weeks, I knew I was on trial. Could I give a lecture in this class?
Wow. So you said you knew you were on trial?
I felt I was okay. I was just going to check out to see if I could keep up with it.
That's great. That's great. Excellent.
I want Mary to tell you one thing she did. She has done a lot in the cultural area, particularly with the immigrants from
Cambodia.
Cambodian
we had a large
I want you to tell them about going into the home and your exorcism.
Well, you just, when you make mistakes and things weren't working, the parents never go in the classes because in Cambodia, they leave the children at the doorstep, never to talk to anybody. And we needed people to come in. We had some major issues. These were people coming from the camp with major traumas. And parents were, and the kids were traumatized. And we needed really to work with them. And I had tried many things. Finally, I would go into the homes, by the way. I started doing that. And I'd sit on the floor and we'd do home assessments and talk about children. I also finally had the priests come into the school to give a special blessing to the school and to the work that we were doing here. And later, then we got all the people to come in a little bit early for that parent night that important parent night where you learn what the children are going to do all year. So we got the kids in, we had translators, we just did everything. And by golly, that night was so important that we just turned the whole community around, and everybody was welcoming of the Cambodian parents. And we felt that any Cambodian student who came from us and stayed with our school system in Amherst, and if they made it, they were on to college and they've been successful. We've had great success with our Cambodians, if they stayed with us.
Excellent.
Services.
Excellent.
So you have to think outside the box sometimes.
So I that's really great. I think you do have to think outside the box, but I think it's important to, and also to kind of hear from the people, right?
Yeah.
You need to hear what they need and find a way to integrate that into what you're doing as well. So that is great. So I got a kind of 3-part question. So tell me, the both of you, what each of you are most proud of separately. What are you most proud of and what you have contributed to the world of counseling? And then what are you most proud of that you contributed together?
Oh my gosh. Would you go first?
I guess I would say the microskills framework. Anytime you see that word listing, where this Wall Street Journal, our competing textbooks are particularly good at being influenced by what we've done. And I think they're starting finally to put a little neuroscience in. And I remember talking to one competitor, and I said, "Wait, how come there's no culture in your book?" She said, "It isn't important." And that's what we're dealing with. That's resistance. That's kind of like the South. We don't want to change. So we really have to. I'm really proud of the multicultural stuff, which is so important to me. And I'm really proud of our book and what we're saying.
So that's what you're most proud of in terms of your individual piece?
Yeah.
Mary, what are you most proud of, Mary?
Well, I think I've been a great cheerleader to one of the most brilliant minds in the field of counseling. He's been around for 50 years, and I think I've been able to be a very good helpmate to him. I think that he is absolutely brilliant. I've known that right from the beginning. I had one of the best educations in the country, and sometimes I have to step back and say, "Wow." But I move right along. I help him, and I'm just proud that I married him and kept him on track and kept him thinking all the time.
And that's a beautiful. That's a beautiful testimonial. That's so powerful. The power of love.
Yep, that's right.
And so collectively, what are you both most proud of collectively?
Well, I'm collectively proud of the fact that we have 4 children together that are all married and 10 wonderful grandchildren. We're going to a graduation tomorrow. They're all doing great, and I think that's because we've been very good models. We were divorced, but none of them are divorced. Everybody's doing very well. We're on track to go to college. Everybody's in college. They're all working. So I'm most proud of our family that we've been able to be good parents. And I'm proud of the work that we've done together. And with Carlos's help, he's been just great with the video production, some of the things he's added. I think we've got a great team, and I'm most proud of our team.
I'm so happy that you saw some promise in me and you helped me be a part of what you all do. I go down in history with some of the stuff that you've done. So I need you to revisit putting those first videos back out there. You got to kind of find a way to remarket those out there. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding.
We saw you, Ken, as a rising star. We saw it right at the beginning. We see talent right away.
But we didn't know you were that good.
Alan, listen, I will tell you this. I'm always enamored by the fact that every once in a while I get an email from you or a text message or a call, and I hold you in such high esteem. You both know that. I really appreciate you because you did help me as I was starting out in my career. And but the thing is, you never forget me. You send something out, and you'll send, and I'm included in that, and I really truly appreciate you both for that. That you never forget me, and you were my cheerleader when I was running for ACA president, and I appreciate that too.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Well, Ken, I got to say, you're unforgettable. What other choice do I have?
Whatever. So my last question to you all, we're running out of time. Can you kind of share what your hopes are for the future of counseling?
Wow.
I would like a stronger leadership position in terms of multicultural issues. I think there's still a lot that needs to be done, and I would like to see a stronger commitment, more time spent. As you know, I would like to see that as that person's actions in multiculturalism is a central issue to become a fellow. I've not been able to sell that yet, apparently, but I think that we need to say this is who we are. We are social change agents, and let's not get caught up in the number of publications and teacher race ratings or whatever. Let's focus on, are you doing anything?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I love you both. And I thank you for, Mary, I thank you for letting me pull you into this second half.
Me too. It's been easier.
And you all, you have such a great legacy that you have left the world of counseling, and you continue to leave the world of counseling. I thank you for being a guest today on The Voice of Counseling. And I can't wait to see you again. I might have to get in the car and drive down to Sarasota.
Come down to see us, of course. Yes, of course.
Well,
Wonderful talking to you today, Kent.
Definitely. So this is The Voice of Counseling from the American Counseling Association. I'm Dr. S. Kent Butler. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you next time.